I suck at jiu-jitsu? How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
Dad, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are
Doing good. I'm glad to have you back on the podcast.
you? Always fun.
We've talked. I get the when are you going to have your dad back? When are you going to have your dad back? But you're a busy guy. You're too important for the I suck at jiu-jitsu show.
Yeah.
You know?
I am.
You're off. Yeah, you're off doing your own thing, you know? It's like, we'll get my dad when he's good and ready, you know? And so we were able to squeeze some time before we both teach class. Probably end up teaching class together tonight.
Yeah, probably won't be a huge class.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I would assume it's small.
What are you going to teach? What do you want to teach?
I'm going to teach the new knee on the floor concept.
Okay, I like that.
And people, we looked at it in noon class today. I mean, Bryce was disruptive and didn't work it. But Bryce, did you think it was any good?
Yeah, for sure, man.
Awesome.
Bryce was lying. He didn't like it. He didn't like it one bit. All Bryce wants to do is gain weight and play top. Man, dude's 210 right now. And they're like, oh yeah, guard. I love it. So I kind of was going to start at a different spot on this. And the real reason I want to have you on again was it seems like I started training at 15, right? 14. And that was 16 years ago. So obviously a lot of my coaches and a lot of my coaches' peers were about 30. And those guys, almost 20 years later, are 50 or about 50. And getting to talk to them, and these are the guys that I got to look up to as jiu-jitsu coaches, as jiu-jitsu athletes. And a lot of these guys are getting to this point where they can no longer, I would almost say, train jiu-jitsu at any capacity that they know. And it's this point where they're getting worse at jiu-jitsu and they're discouraged and their bodies are beat up and their bodies keep getting beat up worse. And you are how old?
I'm 63. So I'll be in a couple months 64.
So be 64 in 2
February,
months.
yeah,
And you get to train and enjoy jiu-jitsu. And even me, who thinks like that he appreciates that and understands how cool that is, I'm realizing now that I still don't understand that. But then I also realize that, like, with my students and with the mentality at my gym, that a lot of the guys have even learned from you. And so it's kind of this understood thing that, like, yeah, these old guys are tough too, and then it's almost different when I go to other places. There's this like acceptance of, well, yeah, we really don't get to learn jiu-jitsu. We're here, we get to be part of it, but we don't get to learn jiu-jitsu. What are some things that you see, if anything, what's the big thing that you see that's causing people in their early 50s to not be able to do actual jiu-jitsu rounds and actually get better at jiu-jitsu?
So here's my thought on that. I think that a lot of it has to do with you fall in love with jiu-jitsu, right? And it kind of sucks you in. And then you're like, that thing, hey, I'm just going to go drill tonight. The next thing you're rolling to the death at the end of it. You know what I'm saying? So
Not me. No, I've never done that.
So here's what it comes down to. In your 40s, you can do a lot of stuff in your 40s that you've done before. You just can't do it as often, but it's not that noticeable. That was the thing for me. I mean, you can, obviously you're older. In your 50s, it begins to decline a little more. And in your 60s, it's terrible. So you have to adapt to that. You have to, I think a lot of people are not willing to lose their tap. I think that's one of the things too. For me, man, I lose all the time. It's not a big deal. I don't eat submissions, but I kind of keep myself out of them the best I can too.
Of course.
So that's one thing. The other thing is,
I don't know. If I put something on you, you'll eat it with me.
Yeah, but
You'll eat a submission.
That's
You'll
a family thing.
eat a submission on me. Now we're with anybody else, but on me, he will. Hey guys, Josh here. Just wanted to tell you about an exciting offer that is exclusive for I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show listeners. So right now, BJJ Mental Models Premium is half off with promo code JOSH. And if you don't know what BJJ Mental Models Premium is, it is your best way to access some of the highest level coaching material that there is in the jiu-jitsu space. I'm looking through some of these deep dives, some of these topics that they have with really high level coaches, like The War Within by Aaron Harrell, or Grappling with Confidence with grapplers like Joseph Chin, Elizabeth Clay, Dante Leon, and more. Or even Timeless Jiu-Jitsu with Rafael Lovato Jr. There are so many different, hundreds of hours of different content for you to consume and places for you to learn. And the best part is it costs less than a subscription to Netflix. And on top of that, you can get half off your first month with promo code JOSH.
I think that people don't understand one concept, and I've probably said this on the show before. The most misunderstood concept in exercise, in training, in professional sports is recovery. And people talk about recovery. Here's the thing. So you have people that talk about recovery, and you're going to do ice bath to do this recovery and all those things. This is great. Fine, whatever, however you want to do that. But you have to understand something. The reason that your body gets inflamed after a session is because that's part of the recovery process. I don't do ice baths because I feel that they disrupt my recovery process. I remember years ago they talked about cortisol after a workout, and they had this anti-cortisol supplement. And I'm like, why would you take that? Cortisol is a reason. It's there for a reason, and it helps you recover. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times what you'll see, I put weight training in this perspective. So people will lift weights, and then they'll come back and lift weights the next day. And then they'll lift weights, and you're doing 4 or 5 sessions a week, okay? Here's what you've done. You're recovering enough to work out the next day, but you're not recovering enough to get stronger. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So now you have to, do different things, add different things so that you can continue to progress. And so for me, what I've always done, I have always been a very, I'll use the word explosive. I could fudge dunk a basketball when I was young. Mm-hmm. I could always really run fast. I couldn't run far, so I had a lot of fast twitch muscle fiber types, not a lot of slow twitch. So for me, I've always just understood that recovery is super important. So for example, I'll give you my training schedule now. And then I'll go back to talk a little bit more about what you said. So for me, I lift weights on Tuesday. I teach a class tonight. I do a 30-minute...
Being Wednesday tonight.
Tonight's Wednesday, yes. Mm-hmm. I do a 30 to a 45-minute nonstop session on Thursday. And I've done that for years. Used to do it with Kitchler. Still do it. I do it with Goldie now. Mm-hmm. And Goldie's always trying to kill me. He just wants to beat me so bad. He'll go and ask Rosa Carter, Steve did this to me. And he's getting better.
He's always got a million questions for me. I didn't realize I was preparing him for you.
I love it. So then I'll do that. And Friday, I usually take off, but your mom likes to go hiking, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And then Saturday's my hard day. But I only do 3 or 4 hard rounds, maybe even less based on how I feel.
And based on who you go with.
Exactly. There was a few weeks ago I went with you. And I've been dealing with a medical condition I'll talk about as well. Mm-hmm. And so I did a round with you to open, and I was just exhausted after that. And the rest of the day was really rough.
Yeah.
So that's generally my schedule. Recently, the last 2 weeks, Jen likes to go hiking, and I'm like, I love spending time with her. And so we go to Monk's Mound. Well, what's at Monk's Mound? That big hill. Mm-hmm. And you know how your mom is and your dad.
Yes.
So we're racing up the hill, basically.
Uh-huh. And for context, how many steps do you think that is?
1 billion. Dude, my legs are so on fire there.
Yeah. Do you know is that one of the wonders of the world?
Is it really?
I thought, I know it's something. I mean, obviously the aliens did it.
Of course.
But yeah, there was like 1,000,000+ person civilization in that area before we ever got here, before we ever came upon the Indians that were living in that area.
Really?
And so they just have evidence of this massive, massive civilization in America, in Cahokia, and
That's
they had
awesome.
these mounds that they brought from all this mud from miles to. I mean, that the aliens brought all this mud from miles.
Mars.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was from the Mississippi.
But anyway,
that makes more sense.
And I added a couple of those 2 Fridays in a row, and man, that just ruined my jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. On Saturday?
Yes. Last 2 weeks, why am I struggling? But that was a big part of it. So so going back to what you said, I remember going to I don't remember exactly what it was called, Old Man Jiu-Jitsu seminar. Mm-hmm. And what I found, though, it wasn't any different, honestly, than a young man's jiu-jitsu.
I remember you telling me that.
It just wasn't any different. I was the oldest guy there.
And for context, what was the age group of these guys that were teaching at that time?
They were younger. Yeah, they were younger. They were probably 40. Mm-hmm. So, and so it's kind of like when I tell my trainers, when you're dealing with you have to know how to train an older client. Mm-hmm. So the reason for that is I know what an older client feels like, and that, there's a difference between theory and practice. Mm-hmm. In theory, you can do this. In practice, there's so many things that go along with that. You know what I'm saying? Like that really doesn't work in the real world. Mm-hmm. And so I just noticed that, and I'm like, but it was really crazy. Everyone was taped up, broke up, and very few people. I think it was Mark Comine, mm-hmm. and I rolled with him at that seminar. Mm-hmm. But I just noticed that not a lot of people rolled. And I think also, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone older, is that sometimes you're afraid to roll, because you're a black belt and you've got a bunch of stripes, but you can't do what you used to do. Mm-hmm. And so it gets a bit embarrassing as well, And so for me, I don't roll with everyone. Mm-hmm. I'll pick and choose. I'm not going to roll with some big giant guy. It's just not wise. Mm-mm. And so I think really what it comes down to is improper recovery and not structuring your training in a fashion that gives you enough recovery time. Mm-hmm. And you just emotionally do jiu-jitsu rather than have an intellectual approach in the middle of it. So I always structured my training and everything that I've done. I've always done that. And so everything that I do is always really structured, and I just understand how my body works. And so, it's just kind of programming, so to speak.
Give me what you were doing. You gave us your kind of weekly training schedule currently. What, if as much as you remember, give me 50 or early 50s, what the differences were.
I used to train in the evening, or early training, and I always got hurt.
I remember this.
And I'm like, I am getting hurt because I am not I'm not designed to train at night.
Yeah.
My peak hours are in the morning. Mm-hmm. I go to bed really early. I get up really early. I do a ton of work early. I get a ton of stuff done. And so that late night stuff, it just ruined me. So that was
getting up at 4 and then training jiu-jitsu at 7. Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't work. So then I would train a few nights in a row. And you just wanted to be there, Mm-hmm. So then I would try to train a little less, but still in the evening. And there was a point where I can't train in the evening anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so I just moved it to more daytime training. That's my best training. I train on Saturday, train in the day. On Thursday, I train in the day. I lift weights. I have a particular time that I do that. I'm pretty crazy if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
But
I've thought about it. Yeah.
It's structured, though. It just works. And so that's how I get a lot of stuff done. Somebody said, how do you get a lot of stuff done? I go, well, you rock your front yard. That's how you do it. So if you ever drive by where I live, the front yard is rocked. That way you don't have to cut the grass. I don't waste my time on that stuff.
It's genius. You've solved the world's problems.
I just gave you 2 hours a week. I gave Ross Tyler about 20 hours a month because he's a yard guy.
Oh, he ain't doing it. He is. I'll drive past their house and I'll see him in the backyard planting something.
Yeah, he loves it.
You know, having scissors out, cutting the grass, measuring pH levels.
But I guess what I'm saying is that I just figure out what works, and that's how I go about that.
And so much of it is done by feel and trial and error. But then once you find something that works, then you'll tend to stick with it, you know? And so let's talk diet then now on that note. For you, you have, I mean, probably in your right when you turned 60s, you had a big dietary shift, right?
Yeah. It was based on, I had this chronic cough.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, what is going on? And so I would call my doc and he'd prescribe a, antibiotic or maybe get a rescue inhaler. You have exercise-induced asthma. Then I was like, this thing isn't going away. So I would just try different things. And then it'd kind of go away a little. Then it'd come back. And then it'd kind of go away and come back. And then it just stayed. And so I was going to doctors and trying to figure it out. And I went to, my GP and he said, well, let's get a chest x-ray, which I got. He said, let's go. I want you to go see a pulmonologist, which I did. And here's what's interesting about the medical community. If someone comes in and you're in pretty good shape, when I went to the pulmonologist, I was kind of dismissed. And what I mean by that is like, I want to know. I went through all the tests and he goes, look, man, you blew away every test. They were blowing tests, which is kind of a little pun there. But and he said, your x-ray's perfect. You have no lung problems whatsoever. Your breathing is great. He did this. He looked at me and he goes, it's something here. And he did that. I'm like, what does that mean? So I thought, well, then the nurse told me to take some Prilosec over the counter. And so I did, and that helped. And it actually cured it for like a month. It was gone. Then what they say is, here's what the diagnosis, I went to an ENT, and I have what's called silent GERD. And so that Prilosec cut that, it reduces your stomach acid. And then when you quit it, the stomach acid doubles down. There's always a rebound effect. And so it came back with a vengeance. So I went to see an ENT. They stick this stuff down your throat. Long story short, I gave her the symptoms, and she did all the stuff, and she said, oh, you have silent GERD.
Okay.
And so I can explain that in a medical, if you want to know exactly what happens, I can explain what it is, because they don't tell you. They give you a medicine. They don't even tell you how to take the medicine correctly. And once again, for me, I don't want to take medicine. I'm thankful that we have medicine. I don't want to stay on it. So it crushes my soul to take medicine. You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
I don't like doing it. So so here's what it is. What happens is you have your esophagus, okay? And there's a muscle in the end of it, and it opens and closes. And after a while, it could be stress related, it could be genetic, it could be dietary, it could be a number of different things, but it weakens. And so what happens is when you eat food, you have this stomach acid. And when that muscle doesn't close, that acid comes back up into your esophagus. It also aspirates into your lungs, which causes that chronic cough.
Okay.
And so they give you this thing called omeprazole. And so you start taking it. I've taken it for a month, and it's got, I sleep at night because I didn't literally for over a year. I did not sleep through the night. I was struggling. I didn't even know how bad I was until I slept all night.
Yeah.
So then that started to work, and I went back and I told the guy, I go, it's better. I said, but it's not completely gone. He goes, well, it takes up to 2 months. And I go, what about food? What should I eat? He goes, well, just eat in moderation. That's not the answer, man.
Yeah.
That's not the answer. So
Eat in moderation. Oh,
Yeah.
so I can eat anything I want?
and my question,
Crab rangoon for dinner every night?
lasagna with red sauce, right? You know,
Yeah.
and so my big question was, can I have coffee?
Mm-hmm.
And he said everything in moderation. And then my second big question was, hey, I'll go into the gym and, or going to church and people say, my dad had that 3 years later, he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, is this going to kill me? And so I'm in this, and I've lost 17 pounds. I was at 177, I weigh 160 now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really been a challenge. So when my clients would come in, I just thought about this last week because I've been trying everything. I'm reading books, I'm doing all my research. So my clients come in with GERD, with heartburn. I always say just go low carb. And so I was reading this book about, it's called the Fast Track Diet, and it's on curing heartburn. I have heartburn I have GERD without heartburn is what it is. And it has the fermentation process for foods that you eat, and it rates them. So here's why this is important. Picture your stomach as a balloon with a little top where you blow into, sitting at the top. That's your esophagus. So in your stomach, when you eat certain carbohydrates, as they're breaking down, elicit a gas, I think it's CO2. That gas expands in your stomach. So the balloon's expanding, but has no place to go except up.
Makes sense.
So that's what pushes back in. So I thought, well, I'm going back on low carb. So now what I'm doing now is I am back on low carb and food journaling, the response to everything. And then I found this product. And I know people who are listening need to hear this because this is so common.
They have it. Uh-huh.
They have it. There's a lot of people who have it. Nip, Chris's dad, talked to him today. He's my buddy. He's had the same cough. They gave him an inhaler. I go, you don't have that. I said, you got silent GERD. So so I'm diagnosing people now.
Oh, yeah. But I'll always give medical advice to the students at the gym.
Absolutely.
And generally, my medical advice is, don't get surgery, man. You'll be fine.
Eat it. Just eat it.
They told me that same thing years ago, bro. I'm fine.
I'll just finish off with this. I found a product called Reflux Gourmet. And it has what's called alginate in it. What alginate does, when you take it after a meal, it creates this barrier over the acid, and it's like a gel barrier, and the acid can't come up into your esophagus.
It makes sense.
So that's the story behind the change in diet. So now I'm eating, 2 or 3 meals a day and doing my best to see how I respond, but I'm only getting about 1,100 calories, 1,000 calories at times, but I'm going to figure it out because I always figure it out.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's kind of, it's not like it's the first time that you've dealt with something similar. And there's just that, that same thing of just, there is a level of when you talk about recovery and you talk about kind of having a balanced training life and being able to train for a long time and being able to focus on longevity. But there is this point where I don't know exactly how to say it, that you just always have to be adjusting. You always have to be saying, okay, maybe I should tweak it this way. Maybe this is working better for me. And, that's something I've always seen you do. Do you worry that even if they get it cured, that I'll still be passing your guard easily?
And no. I don't worry about that at all. I really don't. What I'm going to do to you is I'll get that grip, man, and you're in trouble if I get the grip.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing.
But the reason that you have to experiment and adjust is because your body is not static; it is dynamic, and it is going to adapt to what you adapted to, and so you have to figure out what it's doing in the middle of that. And so adding recovery days, I think, is one of the most important things that you can do, especially as you age. So
what does a recovery day look like? And what is how does that, how do you add one into your training?
I just take a day off. I'll watch some video maybe or take a walk. And that's just really what it comes down. Play with Maddie, with your son. So hang out with him and, just kind of do that. Just do my church work and things like that as well. There's always something to do there. So that just is, that can disrupt everything too, because, there's always something going on behind the scenes there.
So when it comes to actually rolling, like the actual live rounds, what differences, we kind of talked about that difference for guys in their 40s and just the difference that you can have as you age until you hit that wall.
Yeah.
And we talked about it in forms of recovery, but not really as much as to, and you even touched on it. You said not having an ego. You got to be willing to tap. But how does training look? What is training like? What is the goal of training in order to, again, have longevity?
For me, I just have fun. And so here's what I do. You know how you're supposed to do aerobic work, as you get older? That's my Thursday day. I do a long distance aerobic run, but it's a jiu-jitsu thing. So my heart rate is elevated at a particular time. When, in those situations, I'm just looking for positions. And the things that that long flow roll does, it shows me where my strong positions are. And I get to them all the time. So that's that's my Thursday thing. On Saturday, I still try to stay heavy, lazy, those kind of things. I think for me, it's hard getting under people, and it is hard putting myself in. I don't use like K guard. I don't use X guard. I don't use any of those guards. I'm really very linear because your knees and your hips and things like that. But I'll roll a little hard on Saturday. Sean's always calling me out. Hey, old man, I'm going to get
Sean's always talking
trash to me. So I try to get around with him. Then I'll do around
the longest blue belt in the history of the universe. Finally got it. Congratulations. Shout out, Sean.
I love Sean.
Yeah, me too, man.
I used to hang out with his dad. He came in today, works out. He's doing so good. He got the purple belt, and that motivated him. That I just really noticed.
That's an interesting thing when it comes to belt promotions. Is there are two reasons to promote somebody. One, because they're ready for their belt, or two, because they should be and they aren't. And those people, sometimes you promote them to say, hey, we've seen you working hard. We've seen you staying consistent. We've seen you doing all this, but you're married to this idea that you're going to be that belt forever. You're going to be a blue belt forever. You are comparing yourself. You're upset that you can't beat anybody who's that next belt. But then for some reason, the confidence in that promotion sometimes that hey, this guy is, you have exhibited all the things the qualities that we look for in a belt promotion. It just gives this type of confidence that they become that belt almost overnight.
Yeah. I love it. I watch him and I'm like, man, look at him. He's doing so good. And I was rolling with him on Saturday, and he was just better. He was trying really hard.
If he's in tonight, I'm going to just crush him. I'm going to crush his soul because you said that.
Well,
put it on YouTube,
You're second.
Yeah. So,
I don't even know what you were talking about. What were you talking about?
You were just talking about training method, but
yeah. So Saturday's a harder day. 3 or 4 hard rounds is all. And then
with training partners you like, training partners you trust.
Yes, but sometimes I'll roll with like Jeff, who's tough as
nails. Who you hate, who nobody likes. Nobody says, "Oh, Jeff's a training partner I like."
I love Jeff. He's great. So
Jeff gets just negative shout outs in every podcast.
And I always got to do one with Coach Rob. I'll do one with Rosencutter, who I think is one of our best black belts personally.
I agree.
He's so solid. And he is so hard to submit. He is so hard to submit. He has got that Gracie safe hands thing down. I think he drives around with safe hands.
Jaden, yeah, every time the seatbelt goes over his shoulder, he just sneaks his hand right in.
And he's such a good guy.
Such a good guy. Jaden came in and trained, and I was like, oh, yeah, it'll be a fun, easy night of training. And then I just started to say stuff like, okay, you're going to start from close guard with Robert, and everyone laughed. You're going to start on bottom with me. And I go, then you're going to do bad positions with Mark Rosencutter. Everybody was cracking up.
Was that last Wednesday after he'd worked out for his first time? Oh, he was scorched.
Oh, yeah. He was at the end of it. He looked up at Jeff and he said, head nod on a Wednesday. what is this? And I'm like, yeah, man.
That is a rough night.
And I'm like, bro, this was a small Wednesday. We had a week. Me and Jeff both jumped on it. We're like, dude, you were missing a lot of guys.
See, I would love to do that.
Uh-huh.
But it would be a very bad idea.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you'll die.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Your guys would die.
No, I mean, my guys would be fine. You send in your beginners, and that's all I roll with.
I always just
thrash
I
your
get them
beginners
fired
class.
up back there and talk trash to them. Like,
You're gonna do this in
when
there
you get
tonight.
out there. Yeah,
and then
for
I make them all
context-
start and bottom mount and just crush them.
For context, I teach a fundamental in the back, and you teach the advanced in the front.
On Wednesday. So
Wednesdays.
and that's typically how we do it. I'm sure, like we said tonight, we'll probably just teach a big group
Yeah,
class.
I think I have a new guy coming too. So
Oh, great! I'll beat him down too.
He's a kid. He's like 16.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect. That's what I was hoping you were going to say. But tell me about, and let's just kind of go on. You mentioned flow rolling. You know, it talked about this idea of doing a 30 or 35-minute round. People just can't comprehend that.
Yeah,
And they also can't comprehend what we mean when we say flow rolling. You know?
Yeah. So it's movement based, and you can catch and release a submission if you want. You don't have to, but you'll see, man, the beauty of flow rolling is you see so many things. You're going to get out of that position that you're always in. So flow rolling is just keeping moving. You're not pinning so much. You're just moving a lot, and you're, just kind of looking at these positions, and you're just kind of steady all the way through. You're not going super hard, but you're moving. And so and then you have to remember, some people will ramp that up, and I'm very good at ramping it down. When I feel that.
Yep.
So,
And that is another big thing about it, is you have to have the right training partner, and you have to be the right training partner to do it.
100%.
Most people struggle so much because they go, oh, well, he started to go hard. Like, okay,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean anything.
Then don't go hard.
Yeah,
back.
then just get submitted.
I think I was
After
talking-
2 submissions, the person will go, oh, wait, I'm going really hard,
Yeah.
And you'll be like, yeah, we're just flowing, man, chill.
I was talking to Mike Allen a couple years ago, and we were just starting to roll. He goes, you ready? And I go, Mike, I just go as hard as you go. And he goes, and he stopped, and he goes, oh man, I'm using that. And so he uses that still. So, but I always go slow, and so try to bring it down a little. But there are some people who just go 100%. So I'll just turtle up, play defensive, and kind of go from there when that happens.
Who are some of your favorite training partners?
I always loved training with Kitchler and JD. That was just fun, but I can't do that anymore. I just can't recover from that. We train an hour and a half. I can't do that anymore. I love training with you. I like training with Rob, with Mark. Let me think. Who else? Yeah, I don't like anyone else.
Really?
No, I'm just
not
kidding.
the number one training partner at the gym.
I'm just thinking Rob. I always train with Rob, but wait.
Oh, you go Rob is the number one training partner?
No. I'm just thinking, who is the number one training partner at the gym? Let me think.
Bryce, who's number one training partner at the gym?
For me?
For everybody.
Reese.
That's a great training partner too. Shoot. Man, shout out. I'm saying Ron.
Yes.
Everybody
Dude.
loves strolling with Ron, man.
Yeah, and he's smooth as silk.
That's why he's the most fun training partner. Is it's like you will never have your body. I mean, if you did have your body beat up from Ron, he just doesn't like you.
Yeah, he stopped by today. We were chatting. He goes, "You here tomorrow?" Which means I'm going to get you tomorrow. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be here." So
Reese had one of his match that he won at the AGF. He did so good. And it was like, he's been working so hard. He's been so consistent. And you get this thing where you're one of the youngest kids in the gym. You're one of the newest kids in the gym. And everybody's bigger than you. Everybody's able to beat you, or most of the people are. And so then you're like, well, where am I going to stack up when I actually get to go with somebody my size and my age? And he competes against a kid he had already lost to, and gets him enclosed where he's going.
Cross-collared.
I'm seeing the grips are tight. And at one point, I'm like, Reese, go cross collar. And he digs it. I swear to you, he got his index fingers to touch behind this kid's neck. Because I was saying, get it deeper before you squeeze. Get it deeper. And he's listening, and he looks up, and he's like, don't worry, coach.
I got it.
I'm going to get it deeper. And it just his face when he won was so cool. Everybody was there cheering for him.
Oh, that's
It was
awesome.
so much fun.
Man, that's, when we were doing belt promotions, I think I sent you a text or told you, I'm like, man, you know what we do in here is we give people hope in a world that's somewhat hopeless at times, And I just look at him, and Mindy has done so well with helping him. He is just a good kid, and he's really likable.
I know.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'll put some shoulder pressure on him.
Me too.
Put him into the shadow realm too.
Yeah.
Got to,
Yeah.
Toughen
He
up.
goes hard on me, man.
Me
He tries
too.
to kill me.
He'll hit me
Flying
with
knees.
I was going to say, he'll hit me with the knee cut right to the nose, man.
Do you
Right
know-
to the chin.
Do you know Jonathan, who is in? He's on Saturday. His name's John. He's
Yeah.
smaller guy. Man, I rolled with him last week, and I'm like, wow, this he's got really good.
It's really fun to see. Maybe I'm crazy, but it does feel like every big crop of guys that we have seem to get better faster
I
than
think
the last one.
I think that fundamentals class is really helpful for people. Because I've seen people at purple belt not even know how to do a mounted armbar.
Of course.
I see that all the time.
But it's not even an individual technique. It's not being able to hold somebody in mount, right? It's not being able to, just accomplish a simple task and having those big holes, later in your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And, I think that I really think the biggest mentality thing that we've had here is that everybody just helps you get better, right? Everybody helps everybody
watch
get
it.
better. And it's just the mentality when you're drilling something, it is not about like, let's see if this move works. Well, let's see if you can pull off this move. It's like, let's see if we can implement this move.
I'm laughing because when you said that, I thought of Evan.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him roll a couple weeks ago, and he was torching somebody.
Uh-huh.
And I was so happy for him. I was just, he got their back, and he was just mauling them.
That's awesome.
Here's the other one, though, Elliot Ness. That remember that story with him? Such a fun guy. Elliot, Brinkmeyer, I think his name is. Is that right?
Brink.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And he's gotten better, and he's just a fun guy, funny.
I know,
He's got
man.
really good sense of humor.
We've got a really fun crew.
Oh,
and
it's so much fun.
I just dog your crew when they come in.
Yeah.
I just treat them like garbage when they come in. Just beat them all down. But
If they last, then they're going to be tough.
what a funny testament. Evan's like one of the nicest guys in the world.
Man,
he came up to me and the other day and said something along the lines of like it was him and another guy. I said, hey, I'll roll with one of you guys. And the other guy goes, oh, me. And a little bit later, Evan comes up to me and goes, man, you dodged a bullet on that one. And I was like, that was great trash talk.
Let me tell you what Evan did. One day I opened up Facebook Messenger, and there's a picture of a cracked electric outlet cover. It's cracked.
Yeah. So it's at Head Nod. You know?
Yes. And
We
he
have
goes,
thousands of those, bro.
They're broken everywhere.
Oh,
bro.
yeah.
He sends me a picture of one, and he goes, hey, Steve, I'm really sorry. I was rolling with somebody, and they threw me into this. I'll Venmo you the money so I can get. I'm like, dude,
I'm like, bro, we break one of those a day.
we don't fix them.
Yeah.
They get broken all the time.
People get zapped here
But
all
I'm
the
like,
time,
who
man.
does that? No one ever does that. You know?
Bryce sure wouldn't. Bryce sure wouldn't. He would be like, hey, man, whoever threw me into that probably should Venmo you, Like,
I just get a kick out of that. And so that's, that kind of stuff's fun, just to get to meet new people and see new things. I just love it.
do you remember being purple belts and having this idea that we were going to be ready to start our own jiu-jitsu school?
Yeah.
It's 2015.
Yeah.
And we had kind of all year looked for something. We just couldn't find the right spot. And there was this apartment that was destroyed.
It was horrible.
It was horrible.
I went in and said, no way. You and Mom went in and had a vision.
And it was interesting because normally
It's the other way around.
it's the other way around. And we, for whatever reason, you were like, just go check to make sure. And we're standing there and we're going, well, if these walls came down, you could put something in here. And it's just funny to see the jiu-jitsu space itself was around 1,000 square feet total, about 750 square feet of mats, which is Very,
little.
very small. It wasn't shaped very well for that either. And had one bathroom and a little closet that people could train in with or could change in with no light. And now, we have 2 schools, and we're still growing and building a really, really cool thing.
Love it.
And that came from taking a weird risk, but also just going.
Man, go back to the green room next door. That's where
Even before, even before we were doing jiu-jitsu, we were renting Gracie in Action VHS tapes, buying Gracie in Action VHS tapes, and
renting the Ultimate Fighter from Dave's Movies and More.
And we matted our garage, our shed, and had a jiu-jitsu school. Was doing, or a martial arts school, whatever you would call it. And just always had that.
And there's this picture that comes up in my feed, however many years ago. And it's actually Sean, I think Huff's in it. I think Viv's in it, and probably Kitchler and you and I.
And is Tom in it?
Tommy Clark?
King?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Tom King, yes.
Tom King just came to visit today at noon class.
Thinking about him today, and I was like,
he lives in Chicago.
I was like, is he going to be home for Thanksgiving? Because I was going to text his dad, just say, hey, tell Tom to come and roll.
Yeah, he did. He came and trained with us.
Is he training there at all?
Yeah, he trains at Molinaro's.
Okay.
Alex Molinaro?
No.
He's very good school, very, very good adult competitor.
Awesome.
And so he was just telling me it's very close to where he's at, and it's where he's training.
Loving that blue belt.
Yeah, man.
So he had a white belt for 26 years, probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was training with us then, that would have been when we were training consistently. Then we were blue and purple belts, actually training jiu-jitsu in what we called the BJJ garage, the jiu-jitsu garage. It was 2000 and probably 12 to 2015. We did probably 3 years where we were pretty consistently
But we had the kids'
training
classes. He was in the kids' classes when we started those.
That's hilarious. He was he was
Yeah,
when
and
we were
Charlie.
doing, when I was 8. Man,
Yeah.
really old
you
school.
remember
What a
when-
weird martial arts family.
Do you remember when John Thomas came over and did a seminar in that, and he was going to roll with everyone, and it gets to be 500 degrees in there, man. You can cook a turkey in there. And he said, man, he was exhausted. We had the hose outside, just
I
So,
remember one time he came and taught a seminar there, and he overhead swept me 7,000 times. Like, just the most unbelievable get underneath you, launch you overheads, face plant overhead sweep.
spider guard you.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, he was. I remember what a cool place. What a weird start to.
What a great journey, though. So
It
much
definitely is, and that's like I have so many people that I'll interview on the show, and their jiu-jitsu journey is a martial arts journey that started with Bruce Lee or started with Chuck Norris or whoever, and they started with Taekwondo, and they've done all these other things, and it's just a certain type of person that tends to really love martial arts and kind of see the value in them. What was, when we were growing up, Kyle and I, what was your thought for, I feel like we were always introduced to martial arts. We were always indoctrinated in martial arts. What was your thought behind it? Just that was what was interesting to you?
No, my thought behind it was I had an older brother and his friends beat me up all the time, and no one should have to put up with that. They would cover me with leaves and light the leaves on fire. Just little things like that. So, but it more had to do with growing up very small, going to a very bad high school as a freshman, just getting bullied and, trying to figure out a way to deal with that. So, and I just think it built such self-confidence, and the disciplines that you learn, they go into everyday life. That's, my disciplines are based on my years of bodybuilding and lifting weights and all that kind of stuff. And so I've always monitored that, kept notebooks, and I love how to figure things out and how your body works. And I had messed up. I I have to do continuing education for my personal training certification. And I'm like, man, I haven't done those in a while. I'm not getting any emails. Well, I forgot to pay for my certification at the beginning of the year. I don't know how it slipped my mind. So I did a year's worth of CECs in like I did in Monday night all the way into Tuesday morning. I got a year's worth done. But it was fun because I'm like, man, this is fascinating still to me. I still love this stuff. And so, even in those, you just learn a lot of stuff. That one I had to kind of rush through though, because I needed to get that done. And I have also got been certified as a post-exercise rehabilitation specialist, and I have to get that one. I need some clinical hours there. So,
if you're listening and you're what would be a
chiropractor, a physical therapist, a massage therapist, any of those types of things, just that they can sign off on observation. So, but I want to go to a place where I will learn something. Of course, or maybe I'll take a couple of my chiro friends a cup of coffee and say, hey, this took me an hour to sign off.
So that makes sense.
There
is something to enjoying learning and finding jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is there's so much depth. There's so much that you can learn when it comes to jiu-jitsu. And I always, think about getting to do that so early on and getting to start that so early on. People always say like, well, what would you be doing if you weren't doing jiu-jitsu? Like, who knows, dude? There's no, it's hard to even, if you've trained for 5 years, it's hard to even go, well, what would you be doing? But when you train for 16 and you have a couple businesses that are jiu-jitsu based and everything in your life is jiu-jitsu based.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, who knows? If you were to sit me down and ask me, hey, what do people who don't do jiu-jitsu do? I would go, hey, man, I don't know.
Because I do jiu-jitsu.
I know that I'm always trying to get them to come in and try jiu-jitsu for an hour of their life. And when they do, they love that.
Yeah.
I know they like to go, hey, this is better than all the other stuff that I do. And then I go, okay, well, I'll keep doing this too then. I'll keep hanging out and doing jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah, absolutely. So
anything you want to say to finish?
Book.
Yeah. Go ahead. Tell me about how it came about.
I have a book that's going to be published in 2025 in January, hopefully January. And I call it The Gospel of Fitness.
And we'll make sure to do an episode when that comes out and really do in depth about what the book is and, do a really good flagship episode.
So the backstory behind that is I got a buddies in Florida. We talk all the time. I've trained him before. We were at pastors' conferences together. And he would always call me. We'd stay in touch, but he'd always ask me, he'd always have me on his podcast too, but mine was always fitness related. And so he called me one day, he's asked me some questions, and his name's Pete. I'm like, Pete, I've got a book I've written. I'm like 90% done. And all I would do, I didn't have any intention of publishing it at all. I think it's therapeutic for me to write my thoughts down, things that I learn, what's happening. That way I can communicate things when I go do fitness seminars or things like that. I just write those things down. So I have a category for everything. And I said, well, I'm 90% done. He goes, that's interesting. He says, I have a publishing company. We just started out. He said, send me your manuscript. So I sent it over. He sent me a message back. He goes, hey, you willing to work with us? We want to work with you. And so that's where that's where it started. So over the past 3 months, we've been editors, formatters, all this kind of stuff that you don't even realize. And then, so that's coming out 2025. So yeah, there's a book tour with it. So it's kind of cool, and then I have Rosemary is one of my favorite people in the world. She's the Chamber of Commerce person here in the town. And man, she's so tough. She's very old. She's got a lot of physical problems, but they want her to use a walker. And she's like, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, yes, you go, I mean, she has trouble walking too, but she refuses to give up. And so I told her about it. She's having a bad day. I told her about it. And I just saw her come to life. And she goes, oh, that's all. She got fired up. I'm like, I mean, it was crazy. She transformed. And so I'm like, she needs this more than I do. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm going to set you up for there's some kind of library connection. She goes, we're going to do a book signing. And so all these, and there's another talk show with a guy that I really like. It's a Christian talk show that I always joke, I laugh because we now use the same publisher, which cracks me up, and so I'm going to be on that
And
one.
for context on that too, that being, you're allowed to say that you're going to be on that podcast, right? Probably. Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that being Steve Brown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah, he's
growing up, you have, and a lot of people won't recognize who that name is, but you had cassette tapes, a box of cassette tapes of Steve Brown and his radio show that he did at the time, and every book that he wrote and all of those things, and to get to continue to just really stay true to what you believe you should be doing, not try to market your way into anything, but just meet people and just be yourself. You getting to publish a book with his publisher,
it's just so
be
cool.
on his podcast. That's such a cool thing.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
I look at those things and I go, man, it's crazy to me, so it's cool. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that, but yeah, it's really cool.
What does it feel like?
It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book. It's actually going to be published. And it's not a self-published, it's a real publisher. That makes me laugh.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, because here's the way I look at it, man, listen, let's just be honest. I'm a nobody from Madison. That's what it comes down to. And, I don't even know how to put it other than this. The Lord has been so good to me. And so, man, I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for my life. I can't even tell you how much I thank God every day. Every day I walk into this gym, next door. I open up my gym. The first thing I do is just say thank you every day. Every day I drive into church when I'm going to preach and do those things. I make a big circle and I just say thank you to God. I got a gym in St. Louis. Every time I walk into that, I just say thank you. So I'm so fortunate. I have great people. I mean, like you, Bryce, I love my guys, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, man, I'm so honored in the whole thing, but it does make me laugh. Like I'm going to sign books at a break. That makes me like, who wants to, can't even write.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. And so I'm going to do a book tour. What's that going to be like? I who knows? I don't know. I'm along for the ride. I do know this though. I know a lot about fitness for the average everyday person. That's who the book's written to. And it's written in, I think Jim, the guy did a private with, he said,
Jim Adams. Yeah.
Jim Adams. Yeah. He goes, is this gospel?
Masters of Fitness Business podcast.
Oh, is that right?
Is that?
I don't know if he still has that.
Oh, really?
I don't know. But anyway, he asked me, is this gospel or is this fitness? And I said, yeah. So I realized then I'd made a perfect subversive book title because makes you think about it. And it's a rational approach to aging gracefully. So that's where I'm at with that.
And it's not like you could write a book that has your values in it about just fitness.
Yes, correct.
Yes,
I look at things differently. Yes.
Well, and you look at things as a whole. Your value system, and I'm the same way. Our value system comes from our worldview.
Absolutely.
And that is, both of us have a very similar worldview.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to separate it.
It's who I am. But it's never, ever, ever forced. It is just all I'm doing is telling my story. And then but the fitness aspect of it, man, it's integrated, and it's how I believe it's the best way to live your life, in the way that I have it instructed. So, that's the whole goal. Make the world a better place.
I think that's a really good place to finish it.
Yes, sir.
I think that's where we should leave this one.
Thank you. Thank you, Bryce.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Dad.
Yep. Love you.
Love you too.